And welcome back. So in this summer, what I'm going to do is take you to a song written by a young man who was mentored by Mr. Carlyle Holder. And, you know, the Word of God says life and death is in the power of the tongue. So this man took what seemed as a death sentence on his life, and he declared the Word of God through song in his life. And as you said, he's now alive in more ways than one. Let's take it now to one of his songs. His name is, and I'm praying I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's Tavorias. Tavorias? Wonderful. He's right here. You see him just now, right? Johnson. And the song is called Look What Life Has Done. Enjoy.
Staring in the mirror, giving counsel to myself. This is not who I remember. Seems I hardly know this man. Making faces, trying to figure the location of a dream that I lost somewhere behind, in which I could be defined. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. A country built by the hands of humans, lesser than a man, and for democracy it stands. Yeah, yeah. In times of natural catastrophe, government aid eludes the people. Tell me, who is this I see? He seems to think that he's my equal. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. They are quick to prosecute them, legislate laws and apply them until they are in violation. Yeah, yeah. Not enough money for education, only enough to wage a war based on false information. We are in a situation. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. I lost dear loved ones, and it's taken away from me pieces of my happiness. It takes strength for me to smile. Children dying from starvation in the country that feeds the world. Global warming and pollution, we're our own execution. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. I'm going away from here. Set the strings free in my heart. I don't want no substitution. You will not be my conclusion. No time for hesitation. I am certain that who I see staring at me in the mirror is not the man I choose to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look what life has done to me. Look what life has done to me.
Wow. So, before we go to the break, there's a line that I heard in that song where he says that I'm not the man I used to be. And my mind goes back to Paul when he was Saul and when he lost his sight and then he regained his sight. What we have to understand is that that sight is both physical and spiritual. you start seeing things differently, you start seeing people differently, and of course, internally, you actually see life differently. And that is what happens when we go through the transformation. And this young man who you're going to meet with Mr. Carlyle Holder next went through a transformation. It's going to be a powerful testimony, I'm sure, from both gentlemen. When we come back from the break, you're going to get a brief profile on the man, Mr. Carlyle Holder, as he promotes his book. It's all part of the National Alliance of Faith and Justice, my good friend Krishna Badesi, their second chance month of activities. And this is amazing. This is, I think, the culmination of the month. Major event indeed. We're going to hear more about that as well during the course of the program. Congratulations once again to the Saving Our Sons founder, Mr. Badesi. He's here. He's looking on today. Yeah, he's looking on. He's not on set today, don't worry. But he's here. I'm showing his support, and I'm really grateful to have them. Let's take a break. When we come back, the gentlemen will be joining you. They're on set with me already. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Your Health, Your Choice. So he did some of the first illustrations, the actual drawings.
As you know, I'm a community diabetologist. Diabetes is my specialty.
What needs to be done? How you can take responsibility for your health?
Yes. The gold standard is still the camera.
Whoa, na, yeah. Yo, this is J Prince, and you're looking at ACTN The Voice. Stay locked. The blood of Jesus, oh, yeah, break every chain. Hey, the blood of Jesus, break every chain. The blood of Jesus, break every chain. The blood of Jesus, break every chain. The blood of Jesus, break every chain.
You're watching ACTN, The Voice. ACTN, The Voice, your family-friendly station. ACTN, The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Welcome back. So before we introduce our guest and before we show you this short clip of the work that he's been doing, I'm going to read for you just briefly a brief bio on him. Carlyle Holder is a proven strategic and innovative executive leader with a career spanning 37 years in criminal justice. Over his 27-plus years of distinguished service with the United States Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons, he served 23 of those years as supervisor, manager, and executive. He was a chief executive officer, warden for 12 years. He attained the rank of senior executive service, the highest level one can achieve through federal civil service. He's a veteran of the United States Marines and attended Allen Hancock College and New York University, where he majored in criminal justice. Let's take a look at this brief video, more of the program that he started.
My name is Carlyle Holder, retired warden, Federal Bureau of Prisons. For many years, family, friends, and colleagues have encouraged me to write a book about my experience and how I was able to transform the prisons I served as warden. I deliberated for many years, but now I'm excited to report the pending release of my book, Can Any Good Thing Come Out of Prison? A Case for Prison Restructuring and Reintegration. The title of the book was inspired by biblical scripture, John 1:4-6, and the conversation between Nathaniel and Philip. when he was asked, "Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?" And Philip replied, "Come and see for yourself." I too feel like Natalia, having spent most of my adult life working in the prison system. I finally come to realize what I thought was my job was my ministry, as I was able to transform and restore those individuals under my watch. I have concluded, based upon my experience, that our prison system is in need of restructuring so it can better prepare those under its care to become productive, law-abiding citizens. I have identified ways to accomplish this through my own experience, working with those prison residents under my watch with rehabilitation and habilitation programs based upon dignity and respect. I am anxious to report and answer the proverbial question, can any good thing come out of prison, with a resounding yes, and ask that you join with me as I make the case for prison restructuring, reintegration, and return on investment. Thank you.
Wow. Let's welcome on set the man that you just saw talking in that video, Mr. Carlyle Holder, President and CEO and founder of Correctional Management and Communications Group, and author, of course, the book that you just saw, Can Anything Good Come Out of Prison? And the young man you heard singing a short while ago, Mr. Tavorias, Two Scoop. I guess you explain what that Two Scoop means. Aye, listen, that is information I got. I got that information, Two Scoop Johnson. He will explain what Two Scoop means. Gentlemen, it's indeed a pleasure. Great voice, man. Mr. Holder.
My privilege.
Indeed, sir. The last line in your book, to whom much is given, much is required. In the beginning, I mentioned that there are those living or those in prison who are probably free. Yeah. And there are those on the outside walking amongst us who are imprisoned in the mind. People look at you there and may think, wow, you got it made. But you did not allow yourself to be imprisoned by your circumstances on the outside. For those who don't know of your humble beginnings, sir, can you please let them know how your journey began from small?
From small, wow. I didn't expect that. Yeah, I didn't expect that question. But again, it's such an honor first to just share my story, because I always use the analogy, people see you where you at, but they don't know where you've been and what you've been through. And just to briefly, I'm originally from Trinidad.
That's why I went there.
Grew up in Belmont, and decided at the age of 12, after my mom left for the U.S., I was rebelling, because some things was happening in my life as a young person that I couldn't understand. End up running away from school because they wanted to bench me back in those days, and I walked the streets of Port of Spain and then lived in the streets of Port of Spain.
Wow.
For I don't remember how long, but I know it was a couple months, and I would wake up every morning over by the Savannah. I used to sleep under the white building that's no longer there. And I used to hear the basketball, and that was my cue to wake up in the morning. Went and got dressed and rented a snow cone bike, and would ride to the zoo and sell snow cone until, you know, I remember sitting that day for common entrance and was pondering, you know, man, I'm really, you know, messing up my life, but God has a way of reversing and giving us a second chance. And I left Trinidad at the age of 17. I went to the U.S. to go to school, and then decided to join the Marines. I did 4 years in the Marines. I was a sergeant at 19, got out at 21, joined the prison services at 22, and became warden at 38. At the time, I was the youngest warden in the federal prison system. And I recognize now, as you reflect, because as you go through things in life, you don't, you know, most of the times you don't have an opportunity to reflect. So, you know, to summarize it, what I say now is what I thought was my job was really my ministry. The opportunity to transform men and women under my watch by giving them the opportunity for true redemption and forgiveness.
What is the one misconception or several misconceptions, as much as we can get in the time that we have, that people have when it comes to those who are in prison? Because we have this tendency, lock them up, throw away the key, I don't want to hear anything about them anymore. They would have hurt someone or, you know, a group of people in one way or another. What is the misconception people have that you are trying to change, even within your visit here back home, under the Second Chance program?
Well, the first thing I think I like to qualify that we're not advocating that people that break the law shouldn't you know, stand the consequences of their action. I go further than that. Is once we do that, what are our obligations to them? I think we have an obligation to provide them with every opportunity to change their lives around. I would say, for me, being a spiritual man, that it begins with a strong spiritual foundation. I think if you can get to that part of that person, it begins a restoration that I have seen over and over again, the men and women that I was able. So I always remind people that there is nobody that hasn't been impacted by incarceration, whether personally or somebody that you know that's close to you. So I would say that, you know, we want to be a country that gives people the opportunity to restore and redeem themselves from, you know, the bad decision or bad choices that they have made. And I know sometimes it's tough. I've heard people say, oh, just lock them up, throw away the key. Yeah. You know, that all we do is make the system. When we have high recidivism rates that we do in Trinidad, I think that somebody told me it was like 72%. You know, for me, the return on investment, that's a poor decision. You know, we have to figure out, if we put in monies in the system, what do we want to see come out of it?
That's right.
So I would ask people to give these people a real chance, and if they don't, then they have to pay the consequences. But I think we live in a world, not just in Trinidad, as you know, in America, we incarcerate more people than anybody else in the world. We have 2.2 million individuals in our jails and prisons.
2.2 million.
2.2 million. We represent 5% of the world population, but incarcerates 25%, more than China that has 1 billion people, and India. So we have to really we have to take a look at this whole prison thing, and I felt like God has placed me, based on my experience, that I think I'm qualified to share that we have to restructure prison so it best serves the people that come through the doors. And that's really what I would ask people to just, you know, come and work with the folks in the prison and help them. Don't wait till they come out and then the prison have to do their part in creating an environment for restoration.
You know, I know that you're working, Mr. Christian Badesi, and of course this is under the umbrella of the YTC. A lot of young men are in there, and young women as well. Now, I'm looking at Mr. Johnson here, and I always like to go back to scripture with Jeremiah, when God said, I knew before you were formed in your mother's womb. And the thing is, no child was born with the intent by God for them to go out and wreak havoc on the world. Even go back to Job, when you know, God said, will you consider my servant Job? So at the end of the day, there's truth and there's fact, and I'm saying that you have a gift, sir, and I really want to congratulate you again, because to see the good in people just as God sees the good in people, and to understand that Mr. Johnson here, who I'm going to give to speak when I'm done here, God knew his purpose long before whatever may have happened in his past. And there's truth and there's fact. Now, the fact is that the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. That is a known fact. But the truth is, I have come to give life and give life more abundantly.
Amen.
And the truth is what sets you free. So I'm going to go to Mr. Johnson now. Again, congratulations to you. You know, you would have been mentored by Mr. Holder, who's here now. Your song, Look What Life Has Done. And based on the little that I've heard, life has done a lot, but God has done even so much more. Amen. Tell us about your journey, where you were and where you are today.
Well, To start, I wanted to say it's an honor and a privilege to be here in this beautiful country, Trinidad. This is actually my first international trip.
It's not your last.
It's not mine.
I'm just putting that out there. Just go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, and it feels so good to do it with someone who's been a mentor to me, someone who's been a leader to me, and allow his faith to speak for him. And it's not only affected me, but it's affected so many other men and women. My journey began a kid running the streets of Miami. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I grew up in a somewhat stable environment. My father is actually a pastor, and I grew up in a church, and I allowed myself to be influenced by people who weren't exercising the same belief system that my mother and father were. And it's something actually Carlyle said to me today about, and that is so true with our young men and women. A lot of times the enemy doesn't come at us in some strange form, but a lot of times mischief and these things come at us through people we know, like relatives and friends and family, people who are around us.
Undermine the trust.
To undermine that.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. I was influenced by people that were close to me, a little older than me, and got me into a life of crime. And a decision that I made cost me 25 years in federal prison at 18 years old. I was there in the beginning, angry and bitter about my situation, being in prison, and feeling hopeless. And it was actually when Warden Holder came to Coleman Correctional Facility, and he allowed his faith to be heard and be seen, and he made it possible for so many programs to manifest themselves and allow us to give us the resources and tools that were very essential for us to start being active and doing things and giving back to the community while we were in prison.
Let me interject just for a second. Between the point of meeting Mr. Holder, there seems to be a little window there whereby you wanted more. What was the turning point for you? What was going through your mind at that point? Like, you know what? This is not the end. What was happening in your mind at that point in time?
At that point in time, I did want it more. I just felt like this wasn't the end for me, and that there was more to life than just this. Despite the bad choice I made that led me to incarceration, I began writing music. Okay. And that for me was therapeutic. It gave me a way to channel my thoughts and express myself.
You always liked singing? Is always something that you liked even when smaller?
Even when I was small, music always been a part of my life in the church. Okay. And in school, I played in the orchestra, and that's where I actually learned to play the violin. Wow. The very first instrument I learned was the violin. Wow. And when I went to prison, strangely, there were violins in prison, which I would have never thought I'd see a violin in prison. And
culture shock.
So I gravitated to it. I began to play, and I began to teach the instrument while I was in prison as well. And just working with Mr. Holder in the various programs, writing music for the play productions, and interacting with the youth that were considered high risk coming into the prison. It gave me a sense of purpose and allowed me to see out of my circumstances and allowed me to get out of that bitterness and anger and say, this is bigger than me. There are other people that, young people that could be affected and could possibly be or end up where I am, and I didn't want to see that. And if there's anything I could do to help prevent that from happening, I was more than willing.
And God has clearly restored. Now you're a singer-songwriter, and clearly this song is amazing and it's going to take you very far. Mr. Holder, you took this young man under your wing. Looking at him now and all the years and this book, how do you feel today? Because I'm sure he's just one of many success stories that came out of the various prisons that you would have worked out of, I guess, and that would have birthed this book. How do you feel today looking at all of this? Because I know the book is one great accomplishment, but looking at him, I'm sure is also a great accomplishment, even greater in some areas. I mean, how do you feel?
Well, for as it relates to Tavorias, I saw my son, you know, at such a young age, you know, because when, you know, as you walk around the prison, you get to see people and you get to know them. And there was something about this young man that just struck me. And I within the confines and the rules, I did everything I can to help him. And I'm so proud of the man he has become, because again, this is what, when you give people the opportunity to fulfill their God-gifted talents, this is what happens. You know, I tell him God can restore lost time. You know, and I'm seeing that, you know, that happening in his life. I was at his wedding when he got married, and I'm going to be the godfather for his daughter that was born 2 months.
Congratulations.
But, you know, but these I started and I started doing an annual reunion with those that were under me a year ago, and it's the greatest. I feel so satisfied. This year we just had it about 3 weeks ago, and over 100 of them came, and they get to share their stories and their progress. And I managed from the perspective that I didn't want to know anything about them. I just dealt with them straight up. You know, we had no. I didn't bring anything, and I realized that in a sense it was good because I had no preconceived biases. I found out something today about him that I never knew. Wow. And at this year's reunion, I started my second book because I heard of a story of this young man that I knew, but I never knew his story. And he went to give his testimony, and he said, I was an 8-year-old heroin addict. 8 years old, and he spent 37 years in prison, and now he's a 62-year-old man doing the right thing, running 100-bed transitional housing for returning citizens in D.C. And God brought it in me at that time is that my next book is about the untold stories. Because we don't hear these stories. You know, the public is not willing. They want to get that one bad story, that one person that leaves and they make a bad choice. And that's what I used to tell all the men and women. I said, your responsibility is when you leave here to make sure that you don't do anything that would impact those that's going to follow you. And I must say, in the group of people that we know, the ones that gravitate, because when you offer these opportunities, everybody's not going to take it. And I have a rule that I don't waste my time. I'll try, but I'm not going to beg you if I'm giving you an opportunity to do it. So we had a pretty active group of men and women, and when we get together for this reunion, it's the most. I don't know, words can't explain. As I walk around and we love on each other. People say, well, how the warden and his former residents are so close. Like if he was to read the book, the foreword in my book was written by a young man that was doing life plus 40 years. And I told him if he continued to serve God, God is going to answer his prayers, and he only ended up doing 13 years. Wow. And now he was one of the major figures in the restoration of rights for returning citizens in the state of Florida, that where 1.4 million people was given their rights to vote. So we don't hear those kinds of things, right? We'll hear the one guy that came out and went, right when he went and robbed a bank or went back into to drug dealing. So I always say that we got to talk about the positive. And I'm going to be the voice because, most of them don't have a voice, right? He probably wouldn't get an opportunity for people to hear his gifts if I didn't open that door.
I'm listening to you and I'm almost lost for words, and that's rare for me. I'm not normally lost for words, but it's amazing what you are doing. And, from Genesis Revelation, it's about hope. It's about a hope from God. And hope is not a fictional thing. It is real. And you're right. Even in our own local media, it seems as though we've forgotten to give people hope through our stories. It's always, I'm reading the stories there because it's the news, yes. But many times I have to switch and change things up a bit because there is still good in the world because God is still on the throne, as they say. Can anything could come out of prison? What do you hope to achieve through this book in Trinidad and Tobago? You're here, but I know it will not be your last visit. Tell us more about the details of the book and, again, what you're hoping to accomplish in, of course, the Second Chance month of activities. What's your hope for TNT?
Well, I'm hoping it's really a teaching tool, right, for those that work in the prison system, those that volunteer, and as a roadmap as to restructure, because we have to do it differently. We know what we have done hasn't worked, right? And there's some challenges here in Trinidad that we don't have in the U.S., which is going to be difficult, because I think I always used to say that the transformation or the restoration begins. A lot of times we think we need a lot of money, but I think one of the things I hope that you have to create the environment. Right, the environment has to be right.
Is that one of the challenges that you're making reference to, that our environment needs to change?
Yes. You know, we haven't, I don't think as a country we have built a new correctional facility.
No. We don't even use that term, that's a prison. No,
and you see, some of the things have to, you know, because words are powerful. You would never hear me use ex-offender. I will use formerly incarcerated.
Right.
Or, you know, we have to change our words, because words mean something. So we're going to work, part of us, we're going to talk about doing that, but there's things we can do in the meantime, because we recognize that resources are tight. And I always tell my correctional professionals that we haven't made a case that we should be at the front end of the criminal justice system and get all the resources we need, because we are the gateway to national security. You see, the police gets them for a little time, the prosecutors done, and then they give them to us for life. And yet, if you look, and that happens in America, you know, all the law enforcement agencies get all the resources, and we have to fight, but we really are the gateway, because we have to deal with them for life. And we as a profession have to be able to articulate that to our community, our political leaders and communities, to say, listen, if you want to have people to leave and come out and become productive citizens, because there is a course. When we recidivate, when they go and they come back and they keep going and coming out, that's money that like just went down and we just flush. So I would say that, you know, there's some things that they can do. I was telling Mr. Bondage, I want to come back and I want to talk about the person-first model that I designed. Because to summarize it, I say we are person first before we become anything else. And if we use that model, we can start changing the way we deal with individuals. Because I used to tell my guys, okay, this is an environment, we gotta find a way to coexist. We can't do it without you, and you can't do it without us. So how do we do that? Through mutual respect. Right? That the fact that, you know, listen, you know the rules, I'm gonna enforce the rules in a fair and impartial manner. And we did that and never had a homicide. I never had an inmate killed an inmate under my watch. Because of the programs, and it was a safe place for guys to go and sit back and determine what they want to do when they leave the walls of the prison.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Holden. I'm listening to you, and again, everything you're saying there is so rich, and it is such, you know, vital seeds that you're planting. And if we water it effectively, it will grow. My challenge here is that I have been hearing, like Mr. Bedesi, like many others who have had on the program, other people, of course, in national security, about prison reform and prison reform and prison reform. And there are those who may have said, you know, some of the same things in line with what you're saying. And we have the information there.
Yes.
It's there, it's in Parliament, it's with the politicians, they have it. So do we need a cultural shift? Why haven't we, what about the Trinidad culture or Trinidad and Tobago culture that we just just not doing it, and we know what needs to be done? Is it a mindset? If you can share it in the few minutes that we have.
Well, I think we can't give up, right? You know, recognizing that's we in America now, we're going through a whole big, you know, prison reform, recognizing that we can't continue to keep lock people up. And, you know, we spend $80 billion a year. And I think at some point we can never stop talking about it. Because, you know, I always tell the guys, I don't care about how many books I sell. I want to be that messenger, because there may be somebody sitting or listening to this program and say, you know what? That stuff makes good sense. Let's look and see how we manage prisons and how we can do better. Not just for us, because it's also, I said, when we prepare people, we help community safety as well, because these guys, if we make sure they get jobs and they're connected to families and they're doing the right thing, that creates community safety.
Right.
And we ever don't think about that. So then it reduces the state, you know, liability in terms of funding what we call, you know, I call, you know, deep hole. So I use the 3 R's. I said, you know, we have to restructure prison. We got to make sure the proper reintegration is done, and then we have to be held accountable for return on investment.
Wow. I want to just take a quick commercial break to bring on Mr. Krishna Badesi, just to give us a little more information on the actual month of activities. To Mr. Johnson, thank you, sir. God bless you, your wife, your child. You're an inspiration. God bless you, my brother.
Thank you so much.
And, you know, when you have your big record deal, call me so I can get an autograph. Right? Joining me on set, the man himself, Mr. Krishna Badesi, of the National Alliance of Faith and Justice, founder of Saving Our Sons Initiative, and, of course, responsible for the Second Chance month of activities under YTC. So, welcome, sir. No stranger. Yeah. So,
thank you.
How do you feel quickly about everything that's happening, having Mr. Holder here? How do you feel at this point? That you've had the man very busy, so he needs to get some rest. And you go ahead.
He came here to work. But it has been a really fantastic experience. We have been celebrating a Second Chance month for the first time ever in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes. And this week is actually a re-entry week. Mm-hmm. So it focuses on creating a lot more opportunities, not just a second, but many opportunities for those who have come into contact with the criminal justice system to lead successful lives, to have a proper re-entry opportunities, so that they could continue from where they left out before going behind prison walls. We had the celebrations really were in 4 parts. We had education, where we donated 4,000 copybooks to the school system inside of the prison walls. So all of the institutions benefited from that donation. Then we had Salvation with the Gospel Festival, the Prison Break Gospel Festival, which was on the 12th and 13th. Today we had Motivation, where Tavorias, Mr. Holder, and a number of our formerly incarcerated persons came together to mentor inmates and residents, both at YTC and the other. Tomorrow is what I call Elevation, as we have the book signing, where Mr. Holder is going to share some interesting views on how we could restructure. And
where will this book sign? We have about 4 minutes. So
it takes place at the National Library in Port of Spain, Abercrombie Street. It starts at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. tomorrow.
Those of you who have not gotten your copies of the book as yet, you can do so tomorrow, or you can contact us at 322-0043. 322-0043, and we will do what is necessary to get the book to you.
All right, apart from having the book provided through Mr. Badesi, are there other means of getting the book, Mr. Holder?
Yes, you can get it on my website at ciholderministries.com.
Or ciholderministries.com. All right, and again, it's tomorrow. The public is invited to the
book signing tomorrow. Yeah. The copy of the soft cover copy is $140. The hard cover is $210.
All right, so yeah, you have it. So the soft copy of this book, Can Anything Good Come Out of Prison? And you saw it right here, the young man, Mr. Johnson. A lot of good. Paul and Silas, yeah, I don't have to use that analogy. The book is $140, the soft copy, and the hardcover, $240. If you want more information, the number to call, 322-0043, 322-0043, or you can get more information on the website, you said?
Yes.
CI Holder at
Ministries.
CIHolderMinistries.com. quickly, in 1 minute, any closing remarks, Mr. Holden?
Well, I just want to, I want to also make it known that every penny from the book is going towards the ministry. I'm not taking one penny.
Wow.
So when I hosted the reunion, anybody that couldn't afford, I paid for them to come.
Wow.
So this is something I'm passionate about, and I feel like I'm gonna spread the word. I leave here on Sunday, and I'm in Washington, D.C. Me and Tavorias is doing a big program in Washington, D.C. to kind of close out the second chance month. So I want to, thank you for the opportunity, because information is power. And I want to just close with the Joseph story. We could never forget the Joseph story, right? Because God can take, what somebody meant for our good. God can raise you up, and you can become a leader. And that's what I'm expecting for all the folks that I had the opportunity to shepherd. That's what I say now, not to be their warden, to be their shepherd. So again, thank you for this great opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you again as I come back to help with this transformation process.
Thank you so very much for your ministry. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I'm sure there's so much more, but we are just about all the time. Mr. Bidesi, thank you as always for your vision through the National Alliance of Faith and Justice, the Saving Our Sons initiative. We always continue to support what they're doing right here on ACT and The Voice. This has been another very interesting program. Can anything good come out of prison? Go get a copy of the book tomorrow, the book signing at 5 p.m. at the National Library in Port of Spain. Take care of yourselves. Mr. Johnson, thanks again for coming. And all of us who are viewing, take care and God bless you.